Hello, and welcome to Inventors Helping Inventors. I'm your host, Alan Beckley, inventor of the Wonder Wallet. If you're an inventor searching for proven ways to make money with your invention, if you dream to see your product selling in stores everywhere, you've come to the right place. There's no better place to get help than from experts, inventors who've already achieved success. Every week, I interview successful inventors, asking them the questions you want to know. Tune in to learn from the experts so you can get your invention out of the tank and into the bank.
It was an advantage, I think, to start young in the business, because one of the things I figured out when you're behind a push mower for an hour, you do a lot of thinking. And you do that a lot of times every day, and your mind is just racing constantly. At least mine always was and always has been. So some of my best thinking is when I'm pushing a lawnmower. I still mow my own lawn.
Welcome to episode number 578. Today is a rebroadcast of one of our classic favorites, episode number 520, back to June 23rd of 2025 with successful inventor Bob Hawkinson. Bob invented Fresh Mulch, an innovative mulch bag that is biodegradable and also stops weeds from growing in your flower beds. I think you're going to enjoy this episode as much as I did. Bob Hawkinson grew up in a middle-class family in North Florida. After one semester at community college, he decided that college wasn't for him. At 18, he chose to bicycle across the U.S. He's been self-employed since age 19 as a self-described entrepreneur, since he owns a commercial landscaping business and a nursery. During his 43 years in his commercial landscaping business, he saw tremendous waste in the thousands of plastic mulch bags that his business discarded. He regretted that all this plastic was going into landfills and was polluting the environment. He discovered that 3 billion plastic mulch bags that are discarded annually equal to over 108 billion plastic grocery bags polluting the environment. So he decided to do something about it. He invented Fresh Mulch, a soil and marine biodegradable bag for mulch. It took a great deal of hard work and research to create a material that was both durable but also biodegradable. Today, gardeners and contractors love that fresh mulch bags can be opened and set into flower beds with the mulch on top of the bags. The bags biodegrade over time and prevent weeds from growing through. He's run an inventors group in North Florida and has written a book, The Joy of Diabetes, to help others like him to effectively manage living with type 1 diabetes. His service dog, Dixie, is his constant companion. Today, he's blessed with 5 children, and he and his wife live in North Florida. He's doing his part with Fresh Mulch to reduce the tsunami of plastic waste that is polluting our environment and our bodies with invasive micro and nanoplastics. You'll want to listen to this entire interview, where Bob shares how Fresh Mulch saves consumers and contractors time and labor, since it is installed easily and blocks the growth of weeds in the garden. Also, how he learned that plastic mulch bags pollute the earth more than the 92 billion discarded single-use plastic grocery bags each year. And finally, how he's developing an improved string for weed eaters to replace typical plastic strings that discard more than 11,000 microplastic particles per minute. Now let's get right to our interview with Bob Hawkinson. Bob Hawkinson, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast with us today.
Thank you, Alan. I appreciate it. It's always good to be on a place where people talk about inventing and working with inventors.
I so agree with that. So to kick off, Bob, I'd like to ask, could you share a little bit about your background with our listeners? Where did you grow up and where did you go to school and what did you do before you became an inventor? Could you share that with us?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in North Florida near Jacksonville, and I'm about 62 now. I was a middle class family, and nobody really in my family invented anything. My dad worked on a lot of things as an electrician and was always fixing everything in the house and around the yard. And so I would work with him on that and involved in all those sort of things growing up. My brother went to Yale, my sister went to Vanderbilt. I went to junior college for about one semester and said, nope, not me. My background has been just the school of hard knocks. I've been self-employed since I was 19. I'm 62 now, still on the same commercial landscape management company, do fertilization, pest control, maintenance, installations, all those different things. I, in my free time, opened a nursery here just because I didn't have anything else to do. So instead of working 5 12-hour days a week, now it's 6 12-hour days a week. So that's my background is I'm tired.
It sounds like you have a lot on your plate, and you made several points I'd just like to highlight for our listeners because I've done 500 of these interviews plus, and I begin to see some trends. And that is for inventors in their youth, they are influenced by their family environment, et cetera. And the fact that your dad was an electrician and you got to be involved in that and you really got involved with problem solving. And that seems to really spur the inventive gene, if you will. And almost everybody that I've had on the podcast as an inventor, something in their youth got them to thinking a little differently because truly inventors don't think like the average person, I would say. Also, I like the way you highlighted that your brother and sister, I guess, went to university, to Yale and Vanderbilt, and you tried a little bit of community college. You said, that's not my gig. And sometimes people forget you don't have to go to college to be successful. That's not the only path forward for people. And it's just as you described, you've got a lot going on with commercial landscape, the nursery, et cetera. You have a busy life. And then within all that, you're also an inventor.
Absolutely. It was an advantage, I think, to start young in the business because one of the things I figured out when you're behind a push mower for an hour, you do a lot of thinking. And you do that a lot of times every day, and your mind is just racing constantly. At least mine always was and always has been. So some of my best thinking is when I'm pushing a lawnmower. I still mow my own lawn, even though I have a lot of crews and a lot of people can do it for me. It keeps me grounded and it keeps me thinking.
Interestingly enough, I don't have a huge lot around my house, but I do that myself, and I find that as well. I'd like to ask you, can you briefly share with our listeners what you might think of as the aha moment, the event that happened that caused you to invent your solution to plastic mulch bag environmental pollution, your product, Fresh Mulch? Could you share that with our listeners?
Sure. The biggest thing that would happen when we do these jobs and we realize ultimately that bag mulch is faster to install than bulk mulch. The problem we ran into is you might wind up with 1,000 mulch bags at the end of the job. So you're looking at this thinking, man, can we do with these? I try and figure out, can we recycle them? Nope. Can you reuse them? No, because they're going to break up and become 10 zillion microplastics in your lawn, in your beds. So people a lot of times will say, hey, I use my mulch bag. I'm like, stop. It's like the worst thing you could do. So I said, I'd like to use the mulch bag, but why don't I make it biodegrade? And then that started about a 15-year quest to find a biodegradable material. And ultimately, we had to develop one and we got a patent on it, I guess, a year ago or so. And just got another update to that patent probably 6 or 8 months ago. So it's been a long journey of trying to figure it out. The advantage of all that, too, is it leveraged into a lot of other products that run into the agricultural industry. What I like to say is the material that we've developed and the things that we can do, we stop persistent plastic particulate pollution. And that's really what everybody's worried about when they're talking about microplastics and nanoplastics and those sort of things.
It's an interesting topic, and I like the fact that the average person using a bag of mulch just in their yard or what have you, or two, they're just going to throw it away and they're not really going to give it much thought. But when you're running a business and you end up using bags of mulch and there's 1,000 of them, how can you not think, gee, that's an awful lot of waste and it's not recyclable? So that's it's a great aha moment. In other words, seeing a problem and saying there's got to be a solution. And you pointed to something that's a whole nother topic, but I'll just briefly touch on that. It's the whole issue of microplastics, because I've been reading a bit about that of late. And some of the microplastics are so small they can get through the brain blood barrier. And I think some research has shown the average person has enough microplastics in their brain to equal the size of a spoon. Have you heard that?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's every day you hear new things, and it's pretty staggering the amount of material that's out there. And it's not going to get any better. It's getting worse and worse, but there's so many things that spin off microplastics, like your tires. Those are all plastics. Those are all that tire crumb. Your dryer, your clothes dryer, it's basically almost aerosolizing, pumping all that stuff from, because all your clothes are basically plastic blends. It's pumping all that into the sky. So you get an area with 1,000 houses, they're just pumping it out of there. So there's a lot of things that, other than just packaging, but packaging is a substantial part of the microplastic and nanoplastic issue for sure.
And one more note on that, but I may not succeed in this, but I'm hoping to get the inventor of something called Time Plast onto the podcast. They're seeking venture funding capital right now. And it's literally that. It's a special type of plastic that has a ticking clock. And within whatever the time frame is, 2 weeks, could be even 6 months, the plastic will degrade where it actually can completely dissolve within water, which seems like an incredibly good idea.
Yeah, so I would have to see the material itself, but so mostly those are considered solubles. And so they're not necessarily biodegrading, they're dissolving.
Yeah.
So those, not necessarily that the plastic goes away, it dissolves, but I don't know enough about their product. So one of the things we can do is we can time our material. So we can change a bunch of things in the formulations to make it die faster or slower. And the advantage that we have is that we're, bore everybody to tears here, but it matters. We're tested to ASTM D5988 soil biodegradable and D6691 marine biodegradable. That means that we have tested in a lab to be completely consumed, or over 91%, by microbial activity. So there's a lot of new things on the horizon that all comes down to what is the claims and what is the testing methodology and time that goes behind that. That's what you have to do to find out what is the reality of that material. I don't know anything about their material, so I really can't speak to it.
And it's such a great topic. And let's just dive into the detail of what you were just pointing to just a bit more. Just to highlight it for our listeners, millions of people buy and apply mulch for their gardens and flower beds, and they're used to cutting open the big plastic bag of mulch and pouring their mulch wherever they need it. And they don't really think about it when they discard the plastic bag. Can you describe how your fresh mulch system works entirely different? Especially it gives the gardeners their mulch without the plastic bag waste, but it also blocks weeds. And as you just mentioned, the bag itself biodegrades. Could you step through that and share, like a consumer using your mulch system, how what they do would be perhaps a little different than what people normally do?
Yeah, what I figured out is really, I like to call it package as product or purposeful packaging. We use the package as part of the process or the use of the entire material. So with our product, you're going to open the bag. We have a perforation system that peels out flat. You just spread the material over the bag. Then you overlap to another bag. And so you're putting down this layer of material that's going to biodegrade. And there's a lot of things you got to figure out on biodegradable plastics. So you can't contaminate soils, right? So you have to work with really smart people who understand this world. And it's much more in depth than I ever thought it was. But it's been a lot of fun to learn and to run this whole gamut. But we're doing a lot of really cool things. Working with some folks on the reef restoration. We're working with some folks. We're doing weed eater string. You don't realize 11,000 microplastics per minute are generated by a string trimmer line. Yeah, those are big deals. With the mulch bag, the problem is one mulch bag is equal to about 36 grocery bags and plastic content. So for what we can tell, the claims are there's around 92 billion plastic single-use grocery bags used every year. From what we can decipher, it looks like there's about 3 billion mulch bags used every year. So If you multiply that times 36, it actually comes out to 108 billion equal to grocery bags, if that makes sense, the same plastic content. So there's really more plastic content going out in mulch bags than there are in grocery bags. And for some reason, people don't get that or seem to be concerned about it. I have been. So we got a solution. We help block weeds. You're going to use far less, if any, herbicides. We're very fast and you get a consistent depth. If you take a mulch bag, tear it open and dump it, you're probably going to get 4 to 6 inches in the middle where you started, and you're going to kick it to the sides where you're going to get half an inch. Where if you use our product, you're going to get an average of about 2 inches across the whole distance, which is what you want.
You gave us a lot of things to think about there and that I thought was particularly interesting. Some of the statistics that you shared with us, as you just described, I certainly never thought of it that way. I thought of the plastic one-use bags as being far more than might be from mulch bags, because not everybody uses mulch bags all the time. But when you did the math and you said 3 billion mulch bags equals effectively 108 billion one-use plastic grocery bags going into landfills and everywhere else, that is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it is.
And then also, as I understand it, again, just to give our listeners kind of a visualization of the process, as they're using your product, they literally put the bag itself and open it up and put it on, let's say, the flower bed, and then the mulch is on top of the bag, and the bag will biodegrade, but also will tend to block weeds from coming through. Did I get that right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's designed to do. And we've had really good success with it. It does a good job. The whole thing with the bag and the concept, people will sometimes put down a plastic weed cloth, and then they'll say that we're not having success because we're getting weeds growing on top of the weed cloth. What happens is you put that weed cloth down, it's there for a long time. You put mulch on it this year, okay, great, it blocked weeds. That mulch starts to break down. Next year you mulch again and you build this sort of humus layer of material, and then the weeds grow on top of it. So the advantage of our product is as it biodegrades and breaks up, it goes away. And so you don't layer like you do with the weed barrier that people are used to.
Let me ask another question, and then can you share with us, how does fresh mulch compare in price with conventional mulches? Does it cost more, or is the price about the same? And also, the sad truth is often consumers are a bit hesitant to spend more even when they're getting a superior product. So does fresh mulch cost a bit more than other mulches? And if so, how do you address that with consumers?
Yeah. So if you look at the major brand out there, we're probably going to be $1 a bag more than them, or high-end brand. The difference being that plastic material we are using is very expensive to develop and to use, and the material itself costs more than standard poly. That's why everybody uses the standard materials, because they're dirt cheap, right? The advantage we bring is, okay, now you're not having the herbicide problem. And then you go back to, what's your time worth, right? So do you have to go weed your beds this weekend and next weekend, or can you play golf? So there's cost and there's price. I would say cost-wise, we're a lot less. Price-wise, we're a little bit more.
I like the way you highlighted that. And it sounds like you've clearly enunciated that with consumers, that they should look at the total cost. And the total cost involves, I guess I could say, 3 elements. First of all, the product itself. Second of all, the value of their time. And then really the herbicide that they're going to have to do weeding. And so if their time is worth money and they don't want to spend more in the weeding and all the rest, and then, as you said, they can go play golf, then if they look at it in any kind of meaningful sort of way, this product is going to save them in a variety of ways. It ultimately is going to cost them less, and it's going to free up some of their time that they might spend pulling weeds. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's what the entire project is designed to do. And like I say, after 43 years in this industry, I understand how it works. We're building a barrier product. Sometimes you'll see that folks will go out and they'll use cardboard, which I cringe at, because people don't realize that cardboard is just completely full of plastic glues. And all those glues are plastics. So when they take that sheet, they typically coat that sheet with a glue, plastic glue, and then put in the flutes. And then the other sheet is completely coated with the plastic glue. Sometimes there's a coating on the outside of the cardboard too. So you're not real sure what that is, but you're putting it into your landscape beds. So now you thought you were doing the right thing, but you just introduced a ton of nano and microplastics. So it's a weird world that once you start to understand it, it's really figure out the right solution. I'm a pragmatic inventor. I'm a pragmatic guy. Am I a tree hugger? No. Am I very environmentally focused? Absolutely. I'm in the green industry. I live and love and work in Mother Nature. So I'm very pragmatic about trying to come up with what's the best solution. And so we believe that this is the better solution than anything we've seen out there.
I want to also point to something that every inventor faces, and that is challenges in developing and marketing their inventions. So when you look at your product and your journey thus far, what would you say has been your biggest challenge with fresh mulch? And also, how did you overcome it?
Oh, it's been cake. This has been easy. Okay, I'm lying. This has been, it has been a journey for sure. So I started out with paper bags and wound up starting to use coatings, trying to do tests and things like that. And wound up working with a chemist who's just amazing. And when we looked at the coatings that I was being instructed to use, turns out they were PFAS. I'm like, all right, we're done. We ain't testing that no more. But that was way back before anybody was even looking at PFAS. So it's this weird little world you run in where you have to have intelligent people who know things, if that makes sense. You got to have good mentors and people to work with. The hardest thing is trying to figure out developing the material and then getting it to actually work in the process. Because when you go fill a mulch bag, it's a very violent process. That bag hangs down below that machine and all of a sudden, boom, it drops 1.5 feet of cubic material into that bag with sticks and sharp edges and those sort of things. So you can't blow the bag out. Then that bag has to survive through the retail process. Then it has to survive till you get it home. And then you open it up and use it. And you have to kill it in the bed within a season. So it's been this wide extreme of trying to develop a really strong biodegradable material. And that's why we got a patent. We have a very strong, very ductile, very flexible in use for this material. We can do 3D filament with it. We can mold with it. We can injection mold with it. We can thermoform. We can blow film with it. It really does a lot of different things. So trying to figure out this one thing led me to develop a product that is just game changing on a massive level. Agricultural film. I don't know if you know this, but those people will typically go out and they'll put the plastic down, and it could stay down from anywhere from 3 months to 3 years. At the end of their time, they roll that material up. And when they do, it's shedding all these microplastics. And a lot of times they'll go throw it in a dumpster or they may light it on fire. That's not unheard of. So the beauty of what we're doing, ours can be tilled into the soil. You don't have any removal costs or disposal cost. And it's just a faster, easier way to do it. And you don't build this toxicity into your soils. Is our material cost more than regular poly? Yeah. Are we creating toxic plastic waste over 40 years? No. We're getting consumed by microbes. And to be considered soil biodegradable in the US now, you have to also be considered marine bio and tested as marine biodegradable. The reason being, you get your material out on that farm, you get lots of irrigation, you get lots of rainfall, they have ditches all over the place. That material runs off, goes in those ditches, heads to waterways, heads to big water bodies, and you can't pollute all those areas. So it has to die in the water too. So that's been the process, that sort of the big challenge is to try and clear all these hurdles. But yeah, we've done it. We figured it out.
That's fantastic. I did want to ask you, and I think you mentioned it earlier, but you said you definitely don't want PFAS. Can you tell our audience what PFAS stands for?
So you'll hear them called the forever chemicals, right? The people often will say name brand of Teflon or those sort of things. And there's been movies on it about contamination in farms and fields and all those things. So those are the forever chemicals, the coatings for water repellent clothing and that sort of thing. So yeah, when we developed our material, it's no BPA, no phthalates, no PFAS, has to have soil non-toxicity, has to marine biodegrade, has to soil biodegrade. Yeah, when you're saying what's the hardest thing, man, I don't even know the whole litany of hard things to figure out. But that's inventing. It's really a process. It's not just a ta-da, I'm done. I figured it out. It's you just got to keep going and just jumping the hurdles and knocking down the obstacles.
I just had also just a super simple question. It's my own curiosity more than anything. What does a PFAS stand for then?
Oh, jeez, I always get this wrong. I just always call them the forever chemicals.
Okay,
That's the good thing. You got to learn a whole new language.
that's for sure.
That chemistry class that I didn't necessarily love in high school, I would love to revisit that because I'm in the world of chemistry now. It's pretty interesting.
Bob, as we roll towards a close, are there any parting words you'd like to leave us with?
I ran an inventors group here in town for a really long time also. And the biggest thing I would say is if you're going to invent something, you have to figure out who's going to write you a check, all right? And focus on that person and give them what they want. Just because you like it doesn't mean your mother, sister, brother, cousin, uncle, everybody's going to tell you it's wonderful. What does the market say? And who is going to actually buy that product? So I would always tell inventors, I'd always say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Are you going to try and make it yourself? Are you going to license it? You're going to sell the patent? What are you going to do? So it's a business and you have to decide what kind of business do you want to be in? And does the market want or is willing to financially support your business? So those are all hard things to figure out, but you really have to focus on them rather than just bright eyes and, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's going to be the best. You have to prove it. That's the hard part, is figuring all that out.
Yeah, I think you make a great point. And it's something that I like to bring up with inventors in my different training and groups and everything. And I said, the inventor must think of the user experience in using the product. And sometimes
Yes.
inventors don't think about that. So you could have the greatest mulch bags like you talked about, but if they were difficult for people to cut open and use, that'd be a bad user experience, and you probably only ever sell one. If it's easy to do, they don't really have to think too much about it. They put it in place and say, wow, this works great. It's easy and it biodegrades. Wonderful. That's a great
Yeah,
end user experience.
exactly. By the way, it's polyfluoroalkyl. That's what your
There we
PFA.
go.
Yeah.
All right. I
Can't
like
think
to know
of.
these things.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting process, and we're pretty excited. We're doing pots that can be buried that will biodegrade. They open up, and we're making really good headway on that. Like I said, the string line's coming. The ag film will be soon. We've blown the film for the mulch bags, and we're going to start filling and selling those out of here to begin with, and then that'll be a way to understand and figure out and any tweaks that we need to do. But we're in process on a lot of things. And I would say as an inventor, it comes down to discernment of the market, discernment of how do you want to spend your time? Because if you're going to do this, you're going to spend a lot of hours for a lot of years figuring it out. And it takes tenacity and it takes able to discern a lot of things. And you're going to make some screw ups. This whole process, I've done things where I look back and I go, man, I probably wouldn't have done it that way again if I had to do it. But you don't know that till you do it. So
So
I
true.
would just say if you're totally in love with it, you think it's the right thing, then go start pursuing it and start asking for feedback from others. Maybe not always your friends, maybe not always your family, but somebody who's going to tell you the truth. That's what you need.
So, Bob, my last question for you then is how can our listeners reach you if they have other questions or would like to purchase from you?
Yeah, we're going to be probably in the next few weeks starting on a smaller scale here in North Florida. You could email me at bob@recede, RECEDE.com. Our website, we've got a couple websites. It's Weed Recede, WEED, RECEDE.com, weedrecede.com. And if you're interested in the plastics or other uses that maybe you're thinking you might want to, my goal is to license. So we're very willing to work with multiple people on multiple applications, but that is Recede, RECEDE, bioplastics.com. So weedrecede.com and recedeBioplastics.com are your best way to get in touch with us.
Fantastic. And just repeat that back real quick. Like your email is bob@recede.com, RECEDE.com.
.green. Bob@recede.green.
Color green.
.com. Oh my gosh. Bob@recede.green.
Very important. So they'll go to the right place. And then is the website weedrecede.com or .green?
So that's weedrecede.com and recedeBioplastics.com.
Perfect. All right. Thanks. I always like to kind of repeat that back so our listeners make sure they get it and can know how to get a hold of you. I just want to thank you so much, Bob, for being on the podcast with us today and sharing your inventor's journey and this amazing product that you've put together to hopefully help reduce microplastics in the ecosystem and many other things. And I'd like to reserve the opportunity to follow up with you another 6 months or a year and see what you've got going on at that time. So thanks for being on the podcast with us.
My pleasure. Thank you for your time and your interest. And I'd be glad to keep you posted of what's going on.
Thank you. Thanks so much for tuning in to Inventors Helping Inventors. If you like the show, please tell your friends about it. Make sure to subscribe in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts so you won't miss a single episode. Talk to you soon.